Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Monticello live stream. My name is Melanie Holland, and I am joined here by my colleague, Ariel Armenta. And we're going to be talking a little bit today about some of Monticello's offerings for students and teachers. It's back to school time. I think most everybody's back in school by now. Labor Day is over, end of summer.
Yes.
So everybody's back in school, but we have a lot of really fun and interesting programs for students of all ages, really, here at Monticello, both on-site and virtually. Have a lot of opportunities for teachers, and so we just wanted to highlight some of those for y'all today. So just leave any questions that you have for us in the comments. We'd be happy to answer them, and we'll just jump right into it. So Ariel,
Hello.
why don't you tell us what you do here at Monticello?
Yeah, so I am the volunteer coordinator and professional programs assistant. I actually just recently got into this role, but I've been here for about 6 years. So I spent about a good chunk, about 5 years working and interacting with students, really using the programs that we offer, and some of which I've actually helped create. So
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I didn't even say what I did either, but I'm the curator of digital programs and content, and I work a lot with our digital offerings for teachers, as well as working with Ariel and some of our colleagues on some teacher fellowship programs as well. So been doing this for a long time. We love our teachers and students. We're really excited.
We get thousands of students that come throughout the year. So it's always really exciting, especially since now we're coming, or now that we have a lot of our students coming out this year. It's been so great to just see our property just littered with all of these great, wonderful kids who are excited to learn and really kind of get into some of the stuff that we have been sharing with audiences of, all ages.
Yeah, we're really looking forward. I mean, post-COVID, people are coming back. We're really excited, especially to see the kids when either in their matching T-shirts or their sweatshirts coming in from California or Texas. It's been really fun. Well, speaking of that, can you give us some example, Ariel, of some of the programs that students could do on site at Monticello?
Yeah, so I would say perhaps our most engaging on-site learning experience is our Roundabout program. And it's a program that we offer for students from 3rd grade through high school. And this is kind of an expanded tour. So it's about a 2-hour program where students of a class are paired with a guide. And they spend about 30 minutes or so in the house. So they explore the first floor of Monticello. And then the other big portion of the program is exploring the outside spaces. So we visit the vegetable gardens. We walk around the spaces where both free and enslaved people would have lived and worked. And then we take a little walk down the mountain, passing Thomas Jefferson's gravesite. And throughout this whole time, we're also talking about really important themes. So whether it's Thomas Jefferson as a founding father, Monticello as a plantation where enslaved people lived, or it could be some of those lasting legacies that would come from the Declaration of Independence. So we really have a wonderful opportunity to engage deep with our students. Now, if for students that are unable to be able to reserve a spot for the Roundabout programs, and we also have our highlights tours. And so when students show up to Monticello, they are actually paired with the guide. And the guides that we have here are so great in tailoring it to the needs and interests of the students and what the teachers are also teaching in their classrooms. And so there's a lot of opportunity to really have that one-on-one time with them and to really kind of focus on what they're learning. Now, in addition to some of the tours that we also have our mobile scavenger hunts. And so we also have seen a lot more students that are showing up to our site with smartphones. And so they are also able to scan a QR code and they could choose from a variety of scavenger hunts. And as they're exploring the property, they can learn as they go. And lastly, we have our Griffin Discovery Room. And this is a really wonderful space. It's a very interactive, very hands-on. And in this space, which I like to say is for people of all ages, but primarily 12 years and younger. And here they could be archaeologists, they could be oral historians, they could be builders as they play with the building blocks. So we have a variety of programs and tours that we offer specifically for students. It's pretty great.
That's pretty great. And the scavenger hunt was something you've actually worked on, Ariel. It's fantastic. And anyone could do that. But it's really fun too for school groups if they're coming here. So if a teacher wanted to book a trip to Monticello, like a field trip to Monticello, how would they do that? Can they just call us or do it on the website? I mean,
yeah, I think our website has a lot
think
of
so.
wonderful
Mhm.
resources.
Yep.
We have Crystal Gladden is our manager of school programs. And so you'll probably most likely be working with her on setting up a time,
Mhm.
making sure that we have the staff for it, and kind of working with our reservations department to get you all booked for some of the programs that we have.
Yeah, and we run them pretty much all of the school year. You could call and book a program, and there are some ways that you can bring your students to Monticello, even if you don't have the money for field trips, right? So are there some programs, or how would a teacher do that? Let's say they don't have the funding to take a field trip to Monticello, but they wanted to.
Yeah, definitely. We understand that on-site can be very expensive for a lot of schools and families. So we do offer scholarships as well as one-time funding opportunities for students and for families and schools. And so if those kind of things that you are interested in, again, highly suggest that you check us out. Ask those kind of questions because most likely we'll be able to try to find a way to get you all here on
Yeah,
site.
yeah, and one of the most expensive parts of the field trip is the transportation.
Yes.
So, that's something that you can find is really, and so we do have, I think, a couple scholarships that might help with that or cover some ticket prices. So we do want to try to make it as easy as possible for students to come to Monticello.
One scholarship that came to my mind was a Mitford
Mhm.
scholarship, and that's usually for Title I schools or schools where students receive a lot of free lunches and so forth. So we do try to find ways to accommodate schools that, again, transportation being the most difficult
Right.
for. But if they're not able to come on site, then we also have our digital options,
That's
right?
right. Yeah, we can switch over to digital
Yeah.
options. We do, because we recognize that not all students are going to be able to come on site. We're even out of the way for some students in Virginia. It's a little bit out of the way, although we do get a lot. They're coming on their field trip to Washington, D.C. They take a side trip to Monticello. But we have digital offerings for students, and we have 2 digital programs that we offer now. We offer our live virtual tour program, as well as our digital learning experience, which was formerly called an electronic field trip. And our live virtual tour is really cool because it's what it says it is. It's basically a tour inside the house with a Monticello guide. You get to walk through. I'll show you. This is what we actually use for our virtual tours. And I don't have it on right now. But the guide will use a gimbal like this little device, a stabilizing device, and an iPhone. And we actually do the tour via Zoom. And so the guides, they also usually have a monopod that they can hold, but they can actually get very close up to objects in the house. So you have one guide. Our 2 guides, Chris and Allison, are behind the camera right now, our 2 LVT guides. And so one of them would be holding the phone on the gimbal, and the other would be giving the tour. So it's really like being there as much as you could be there in person.
And
It's really close. And Ariel's done these before.
So
Yeah.
I've done several of these LVTs, and what's really great is that even though they're not on site, they can still interact with the guides,
Yes,
right? So
exactly.
they're still able to ask questions, and who's ever holding the camera will often relay those questions. And so you're really kind of actually interacting with the students, still being able to answer what they're interested in and want to know about.
Absolutely. And that's one of the key things for us is that interactivity. And the live virtual tours we offer throughout the school year on select days. They're usually on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You can book them by going to a web link, which we'll have in the comments, or contacting us via email. And they cost $20 per connection. So that means if you have a class of 50 students, you just pay $20 for one connection. And it's about 45 minutes long, 45 minutes to an hour. That's the live virtual tours. We also offer, let me see if I can turn this off. Sometimes it turns off on tour and flops around. It's really fun. So the other one we offer is a digital learning experience. And that is, you also get to interact directly with a guide and ask the guide questions. The guide will be at a laptop. They'll connect via Zoom, and they'll use PowerPoints and a 360 virtual tour to show you spaces both in Monticello, in the house, and outside, and also show you other images as well. And you can ask questions directly. The only difference between that and the live virtual tour is it's not taking place actually inside the house, but we found that it's very interactive and a really good way to talk about some things that you may not be able to see on the house tour, such as it works really well talking about slavery at Monticello. And so you can kind of see some of the artifacts and the images that we have up close. And those are free. Those are free for K-12. You just would need to contact us to book that. Usually we book out about 2 weeks in advance. So if you can contact us about 2 weeks in advance, we'd be happy to get those digital opportunities set up. And we're really excited because we'd been on a bit of a hiatus with our digital tours. But now that we have Chris and Allison and Hannah, our fabulous digital staff, we're really excited to start booking those and welcoming students virtually. And we can see up to like 10,000 students a year who wouldn't be able to make it to Monticello otherwise.
And I think my favorite part about the digital learning experiences that we offer is that it's not just students in the United States, it's students around the world. I've had students from Japan and South America. So it's really great we're able to connect globally.
Yes, totally. Yeah, so that's our virtual tours. So one thing you talked about too, Ariel, was how the guides can kind of tailor what they talk about to the students and what they're studying. And that's something that we do not only on site, but also digitally. Is if you are studying a particular topic, such as westward expansion, Lewis and Clark, slavery, or the legacies of slavery in America, if you tell us about that ahead of time, our guide will really try to tailor to what you're doing. So our content doesn't necessarily always tie into the curriculum and the standards, but we always find ways to work it in.
And I think that's really fascinating, and what makes Thomas Jefferson certainly fascinating. He's kind of that Renaissance man. And so if you ever visit Monticello, there are so many subjects that you could really expand on. So it's not just kind of getting a history lesson, but if you have students who are interested in science, art, geography, civics, these are all things that we can expand on our tours. And I would say that our guides do a great job on checking in with the teachers first and seeing if there's anything in particular that they'd want them to focus on, or ask them, what are you learning and what are these kids learning in class? And so we are very good at, I guess you could say, improvising, being quick on our feet, adapting, and we really do a great job on adapting to the children. So if they're a younger audience, then we'll adapt or change our words, some of the concepts and how we explain it. If they're older, it's easier to have those more kind of adult-like conversations. And so we're really good at being flexible, as we like to say here, depending on who we have and what they're interested in.
Absolutely. I mean, even I'd like to use the example with our digital programs. In the past, there was a book, a young adult book called Jefferson Sons, that a teacher was using in her classroom. And she asked us if we could speak to that on the tour. And so one of our guides, I don't know if it was you that did one on Jefferson Sons, or maybe it was Ashley or Carrie, but they would incorporate that into it as well, to talk about, Thomas Jefferson and his children with Sally Hemings, and talk about these bigger topics in a way that's more accessible to children. So, yeah.
And I think what's really great is that here at historic sites, like at Monticello, it's a really we try to create a very safe space for the students. And so we're really big on what we like to call power of place. And so when students are able to come on site, it really helps to stimulate that interest in history. It really helps to make it feel real and thereby generate learning. And so it's really great when they're able to come on site and we are able to, again, kind of dive a little bit deeper into some of those more difficult topics, and really give that safe space for students to express themselves and ask the questions that they perhaps might not feel always comfortable asking in a classroom or, or elsewhere. So it's a really great benefit to have them here.
Yeah, that power of place is really important. I mean, if you're talking about the Declaration of Independence, for example, and the legacies of Declaration of Independence and who had rights and who didn't, when you're actually able to look at it in the library, that makes a real difference for students. And same with live virtual tours, even just like we can zoom in on it and you can see that signature of Thomas Jefferson on there. It's really powerful.
It's very powerful. And on our tours, we not only kind of are able to point out to the objects in the house, but we also oftentimes guides will carry with them props and images. And so it's not just being able to visually see, but also we have opportunities for tactile learners, or perhaps learners that tend to be a little bit more distracted. We have objects and props that pass around to really kind of engage all of their senses.
Yeah, kind of like we have a
right here. I was just saying, we often look at.
I mean, we have a buffalo and a mastodon and TJ. They're all about the same size. I don't know if that's So can you tell me, I mean, stories are really important to our interpretation, and especially when you're interpreting to kids, it's really kind of a way to hook them in. Can you tell us, as a veteran guide and leader of school groups, one of your favorite stories, or a story you like to tell students when they come on site?
Yeah, definitely. So, we've learned that with students, they understand and learn better through storytelling, being able to kind of give a narrative. And throughout the storytelling, they're able to kind of perhaps find themselves in the story or connect to certain themes. And one very powerful story that I would say most of us guides share on our tour is the Peter Fawcett story. Peter Fawcett was born at Monticello. He was born into slavery. Later in his life, late 1890s, he had published his recollections of his time in slavery at Monticello, as well as his time after slavery. So it documents kind of how he grew up on the plantation, when he was sold after Jefferson's death. It talks about his experience under his new slave owner, as well as how he was eventually able to obtain his freedom at the age of 35. And when he was freed here in Virginia, he was reunited with most of his family members in Ohio, where they had traveled. And when we talk about especially slavery at Monticello, we want to try to focus on the theme of resistance. One thing that I say on my tours when I'm talking about Peter Fawcett is that, you know, he could never forget slavery, but he could overcome it. And so we talk about the ways in which he opened up his catering business when he was in freedom, how he and his whole Fawcett family were active participants in the Underground Railroad. So they're helping other people to achieve their freedom. And perhaps his greatest contribution was being in the area of religion, where he opened the first Baptist church in Cumminsville, Ohio. And then we talk about kind of the ending, which is perhaps my favorite part. About 6 months to a year before he died, he always had this like long wish, and his wish was to return home. And for Peter Fawcett, home was here at Monticello. So at the age in his 80s, about 85, I believe, he was able to come back here to Monticello, where he walked through the front doors as a free man. And so here you have themes of resistance, courage, perseverance, education, which played a huge pivotal role in his life and his family's lives. And so this is a really powerful story that, even though it happened, 100 years ago, students are still able to connect and relate to a lot of these themes. And so hopefully helping to serve as inspiration in many ways. And so, yes, I will say Peter Fawcett is definitely a story that we share often at Monticello.
Yeah, and also one thing that's really great about that is we have an image of Peter Fawcett that you can show. So you can actually show a photograph.
And it's one of, I believe, 8 photographs. I'm sorry, probably one of 4 to 8 photographs that we have of an enslaved person who lived at Monticello. So again, kind of really putting a face to that story, which helps certainly humanize it all. So yeah, very impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's shift to teachers a little bit.
Yes.
So speaking of primary sources or secondary sources, let's talk a little bit about what we offer for teachers at Monticello.
Yeah. Well, I've kind of just started with, when it comes to teachers on site, Melanie, right? We've been talking about students. We do offer professional development opportunities for our teachers. And one of them is called the Monticello Teacher Institute. Now, Melanie here has actually been running Monticello Teacher Institute since its inception. So Melanie, did you want to elaborate on that?
Well, Ariel's part of the team too. So yeah, the Monticello Teacher Institute, we had been offering professional development at Monticello for many years, but in 2012, 2013 was when we first offered the Monticello Teacher Institute. It's a week-long fellowship program for teachers, K through 12 teachers, and not just social studies teachers. We've also we've had a math teacher, an art teacher. Sometimes we've had librarians or media specialists that come to participate, and you come on site for a week in July. There are 2 different sessions. And you get to take special tours, you get a behind the scenes tours and a fun reception on the mountain. You get to do research at the Jefferson Library. We get to go have a meal at Mickey Tavern. It's really a fun and special experience. And teachers, as part of that, will create a project related to research on a topic of their choice on Jefferson or Monticello. And so we usually see about 30 teachers per year at the Monticello Teacher Institute, and it's really great. Not only do we think it's a great program for teachers, but for us as staff, like we learn, I think, almost as much as the teachers do, just talking about some of their challenges in the classroom, what's working, what's not working, and building those connections. So.
And it's really great to see them interact with one another. We have teachers right from across the whole country. And so they bring with them their own experiences and some of the challenges that they face, and to kind of see them come together. And a lot of them end up becoming really close friends at the end of it all. So it's really sweet when they're off doing their own thing after the program's day, to see them really also connect on a deeper level as well with each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say this is my first year that I had done it back in July,
Mhm.
and it was a very fulfilling experience just to see the teachers really engaged in the subject material and to see them kind of work on their projects and the ways that it kind of changes also throughout that short week that we're together. It goes by fast, but they all leave with just this overwhelming appreciation for what they've learned with their time with us.
Yeah, and that
Right.
power of place we mentioned
Right.
is really
Power of
important with our
place.
teacher program. And one
Mhm.
thing that we also offered, what the teachers have told us is helpful, is supporting them in teaching, and not just
Mhm.
teaching about Jefferson or Monticello, but teaching the whole and complicated history of America.
Right.
We do focus on slavery in America during Jefferson's time, some of the legacies of slavery and race in America now, tying that into some other bigger issues. We also talk about religion. Religious
Mhm.
freedom is another
Mhm.
topic that can be somewhat complicated.
Mhm.
So we really want to give teachers the support to
Mhm.
help them in teaching these topics. And that includes, we have trainings and we have workshops, but we also have
Yes.
primary sources. We have a
Mhm.
lot of primary
A lot.
sources that can really help in the classroom when you're teaching about some of these more complicated topics.
Yes, and our MTI, we call MTI team, it makes about 4 to 5 people, and so we work with the teachers throughout the whole week on trying to kind of narrow down their project focus
Mhm.
and to kind of help kind of even grapple some of the difficult content that they
Yeah,
do learn while they're here with us. So a lot of
yeah,
stuff that they could take back to their classrooms and share with their colleagues as well.
exactly. Um, so what else? Okay, let's talk about homeschool,
Homeschool, yes, coming up September.
home
Home
educators day,
Educators
they would
Day,
call it.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, Home Educators Day is an intergenerational learning experience where we have students who've been homeschooled, or really, children from across the state, anywhere across the country who come on this very special day dedicated to homeschools
Mhm.
and to dedicated to students. And here, what they're able to do is we offer self-guided tours the whole day. And so with self-guided, they're able to explore the first floor of Monticello at their own pace. And then outside of the home, we have different activities set up throughout the mountaintop. So we have activities for where our colleagues from different departments will come out from curatorial, from restoration, where they'll set up the booths. And so we also have a historic games section. We have costume interpreters who come out and demonstrate skills that were utilized by enslaved people, such as open fire cooking, basket making, and the importance of storytelling. And we also have our costume interpreter, Bill Barker,
Mhm.
who gives a wonderful presentation on the importance of education. And it's all kind of self-directed learning, so people could visit as often or as little as they like. But it's one that's really focused for students.
Yeah,
So it's really great. It's a really fun day. It's a lot of fun activities happening. Read the Declaration of Independence out loud
that's
on
right.
the steps of the West Portico. So really exciting day.
Yeah, it is really great. I recommend it for everyone,
Mhm.
especially home educators
Yes,
and
especially home
their
educators.
students, but
Yes.
it's really fun. And we're actually gonna be having some, digital program geared towards home educators who are homeschooled
Mhm.
students as well. So if you are, a homeschooler and are interested in a digital program because you can't make it here for
Mhm.
our on-site one, then definitely get in touch with us and let's talk about that.
Absolutely.
Um, okay, so let's see. I think we can switch over to maybe some of the kind of like responses from students.
Yes. I
What are
Melanie, it's so
yeah.
fun. I laugh because whenever we've done, especially the digital programs where we've done LVTs or our digital learning experiences, there's nothing sweeter than when a manila envelope,
No, look
okay,
at
is
this.
mailed to us and we have postcards and
Oh my
letters just written
gosh. Look at
by students.
these.
I've received several of my own. So again, my name being Ariel, I've received several postcards with mermaids and a Monticello, and it is the highlight of my day. Really reinforces why we do what we do here, and you could really tell what the students are, what they took away from what their experience and what they learned.
Ooh,
So it could be Thomas Jefferson as
there's the
president,
gravestone.
right? There's this
Yeah.
gravestone. Some of
Hmm.
the things that really kind of stood out to them. So it's very comical.
I
It's
love it
also
so
very,
much.
yeah, a lot of it is very deep, and you can tell that from that one experience, it's almost as if we piqued their interest in history. And that's kind of, the big thing that we want students to take away, is to show that interest in history and really understand its relevance today. And so when we get, postcards,
I love
and
these
notes,
so much.
they're very touching.
We even had a school group from DC, an international school, who came back after a couple of years, the Rochambeau school, and they drew Monticello, and all the students signed it. It's framed. It's in our office.
Yeah, I remember now. Yes.
And so, I mean, I just love it when we get the feedback from students, and what is really interesting is like what they remember.
Yes.
And you said that, but I think for me too, it's really interesting to see what did they remember about
what did they take
visit.
away from it.
Yeah,
and what they found was appreciative, especially when we talk about heavier topics like slavery and stuff. I mean, I've had many letters where students would say, thank you for helping to explain that better in a way that has obviously reached them. And so it's, again, very rewarding and gratifying, and reinforces why we do what we do here.
Exactly. So. And I think what you said was really important. We want to spark that interest for students, that learning. We want them to come back and be lifelong learners, because a lot of people say, when did you first go to a museum? As an adult, if you might say to someone at a party, and they'd be like, oh, I went on a field trip, when I was in 4th grade, and that really made me interested in museums. And so that's really what we're trying to do. I guess our goal is to create those lifelong learners.
To get people to see history is much more than just facts and dates, but there are so many powerful stories to be told and shared here, and stories that we can kind of take in our own lives. It's very inspiring.
It is. So I think that's it. We're about out of time. There's a question.
Yeah, we have a question from online.
Okay.
Natalia is curious if the LVTs are exclusively for teachers and students, or can anyone book one?
Oh, okay. So the question was from Natalia. Thank you. Is whether LVTs, the live virtual tours, are exclusive to students, or could anybody book one? Right now, they are geared towards students. We have had some other learning facilities or classes that have wanted to take them, but they're not available to the general public. We did offer that during COVID, but post-COVID, we're really just offering them to students and teachers. But if you have a group like a library group or a senior group or a community college, we've had those kind of groups reach out. So if you're interested, reach out. I mean, we love to talk to you.
Does it have to ask?
Is that it? Okay. Great. Well, Ariel, thank you so much for being here. Ariel is fantastic. I mean, she's a fantastic interpreter. She's done all of our programs. She piloted our virtual programs. We're really lucky to have you.
Thank you, Melanie. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and thanks for joining, everyone. Join us again next week for Monticello live stream, when we'll have Thomas Jefferson, Bill Barker here, talking about another subject of his choice. So thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you soon.